Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Viva Film Podcast. My name, it's still Anthony, and this episode is a very special episode. We will be talking to writer, director, producer, and editor Julius Jaramillo, who just finished his feature-length debut, his film Poncho, which is currently available to watch on YouTube at BumblingCinema. If you go to YouTube and you look up BumblingCinema, go to his channel, you'll be able to find the film Poncho. Definitely go watch that. And then once you're finished watching it, come back and listen to our interview with Julius, where we'll hear about his process and how he made this film. If you're watching us on YouTube, if this is your first time, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Subscribe, give us a like, maybe comment down below. And if you're listening to us on audio, of course, give us a rating and check us out on YouTube. The Viva Film Podcast is now on YouTube. We're doing video podcasts now. If you just go on YouTube and type up Viva Film Podcast, you'll be able to find us. All right. Without further ado, here is my interview with Julius Jaramillo. Really quickly, do you just want to introduce yourself to our listeners here?
Yeah, absolutely. Should I give everything, like my address, my social,
whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you're comfortable with giving out, man,
Well, hello everybody. My name is Julius. I'm of the channel BumblingCinema on YouTube, as well as the Instagram of the same name. And I've been doing web stuff for a good amount of time, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But recently I've been making a lot of films, including the one that Anthony is very nice to talk to me about today, which is Poncho, which is about a superhero in East LA who is very much disturbed and thinks he can fix the world with his fists. Anthony, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you here. I remember when I met you, last or just this past summer. I remember asking you about the Poncho film, which I think at the time was going to be a short film, and it just kind of like kept growing and growing, and eventually we got this, hour and 20-minute feature film. Yeah. I mean, when you're making a feature film like that, do you just kind of just keep going until you're done, or is it something that you really had to prepare for?
Well, it's tough to talk about like the preparation in that. Like you mentioned, the original plan for this was to be a short. You know what I mean? Maybe short at max like 40 minutes, right? Which is even pushing it for a short film, I think. But because that's the type of filmmaking I was kind of accustomed to, because I'd made some shorts beforehand that ranged from 25 to 15 to 45 minutes and stuff, Yeah. But anyway, so you plan for certain things, right? With any film, you plan to make anything you can, but life tends to go in drastically different directions, and those directions can be for better or for worse, and I think in this case it was for the better. So in terms of the preparation, the mindset, it came actually later on in terms of the filming, because I did not anticipate until really editing it, which was a long process, that this would be well over an hour. You know what I mean? When people asked how long this film would end up being, I was like, it might be pushing an hour, but it turned into an hour 21, and I think it works better for that. Something I talked to my friend Nick, who's one of the actors in the film. He plays Scott Kyle. When I showed him the script, and we were talking about it in December the whole year. It's crazy. He's a writer also. So I was showing it to him to get his feedback, and also, hey, do you want to be in this film? And he provided great feedback. And he said something very valuable, which was, are you sure this is going to be a short? Because it's going to be crazy to give a feature arc to a character in such a short amount of time. You know what I mean? It might not work. And I was like, okay, well, that's a good note. We'll see. We'll see what the film calls for, you know. Especially while editing it, I've edited it all myself pretty much. And I was always telling people, hey, I'm gonna edit as not discriminately. I'm gonna edit as responsibly as I can, you know, not to make it too long, too short, just what it needs to be. And hopefully most people feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I one thing that I really dug about the film is that it's solid like hour 20 minutes, but it moves along pretty quickly. It's got a very quick pace, and it keeps you like really invested. I mean, obviously you have a lot of experience with editing, with your previous short films that you've made. You edited this film yourself, yes? I mean, is that
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
incredible, man.
It was
Um,
crazy.
it was, yeah. I mean, I've edited a handful of projects, and it can be pretty crazy to like go through that process.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, when you were editing, you said you were editing responsibly. I mean, was there anything that you felt like you overshot, or that had to get cut out due to timing? I mean, was there any kind of dropped plot lines, or anything that didn't make the final cut?
Yes, there were. There were, but it actually wasn't in the edit, it was in the writing process. Um, like there are the first draft of Poncho is drastically different from what you see in the film. You know what I mean?
And
Um,
were you changing the story as you were shooting, or
certain things,
certain
yes.
parts?
Certain
Okay.
things, yes. Like for example, the scenes with the police officers, the outside of the whole situation with the Harold Harrison character, where there's the crowd and everything, and they're showing up to the crime scene and stuff. That is something that I added later on, while we were doing the filming, and because we needed that, oh, at least I felt we needed that presence, you know what I mean? Like we were shooting the stuff with Harold Harrison, and we have lights outside of the window, which is a garage. We're faking a garage for a warehouse, we have the police lights outside and they're shooting in and everything, but we really needed a physical presence more than just what lights had to offer. You know what I mean? Because the stakes, I think it raised the stakes even more to see the people watching this live stream, in the right outside of the building that this stuff is happening from. I think adds a lot of weight to it. And also, I mean, that was one of the toughest days of organizing a set of people. And I wanted to challenge myself in that way, in that, like, hey, we have to get a whole bunch of people. I was asking all sorts of people, hey, you want to come help out, be in a crowd, be in a movie and stuff? And thankfully it was mostly, I don't mean to sound like, racist or whatever, but it was mostly Mexican fools and everything, which helped the point, and some, some here and there, some other races and stuff. But they all showed up because they were really excited about the film, and they wanted to see the film. And when I was like, hey, do you want to be in the film? Like that'll help, gather some traction and stuff. So that challenge of getting everybody there and getting the oneer together is attractive. But those are things that I think should be, hey, how's it going? Those are things that I think should be uh, really thought out ahead of time. You know what I mean? Like, don't add them. You can, but like when you're halfway done shooting,
It,
try to
it,
know
it
what
it
you
gets
want.
it gets more and more difficult, because it's like
Yeah,
it's like you're trying to build a car as it's rolling down the hill. You're like, right.
exactly.
Um, so going back to your planning, so you have this character Poncho, who is this, vigilante who is going after these bad guys, these bad hombres, if you will.
Yeah.
What was the process of coming up with that idea and that story? I mean, how far back does this concept go?
It goes back a ways, It really does go back a ways. Even before I really got into filmmaking in the way that I have been. Because I really, this new era for me in my life, at least, of getting people together and shooting short films to where we are with Poncho and stuff, really started when I pursued a project called The Podcast, which is a short film that I made with my buddy Andrew. And that was a very kind of tough transitional period for me because for so long I was going to school for filmmaking and the writing options and stuff, but I wasn't doing shit. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, not doing internships or anything like that. I was part of this channel called the Goat Movie Podcast with my friend Angel, who's very, very famous now on Instagram and TikTok. He goes by Blu-ray Angel. Yeah, you've probably seen him, and he's actually has a cameo in Poncho and everything. But he's a really great guy. But we stopped working together at a certain point, and the podcast was kind of the film about that transitional period for me of like, I'm leaving this now so that I can get into film stuff. You know what I mean? So in terms of where Poncho comes in, as you are probably, maybe you'll get into this, I don't know, but like as some people who watch the films know, they're all kind of connected. There are connections with each film. And Poncho, the idea of that it kind of came way before the podcast, way before I left Goat Movie Podcast. I wrote a 10-page script called Poncho, and it's very different. I think it's worse. I'm very happy with what we ended up with because I've always described the film we have as Taxi Driver meets Zorro, whereas the script that I'm talking about was much more just Taxi Driver. It was about a guy who was disturbed, who wore a poncho, who wanted to he's talking to a therapist and he's like, I'm gonna be a superhero and all this shit. Here's a flash drive with my buddy filming me, like, because I was inspired a lot by these real guys like Phoenix Jones and who seem to do it for the fame and notoriety. You know what I mean? They want a reality show by being a superhero. So that's kind of what it was ducktailing off of. And he's like on patrol, and it's like found footage almost. He's on patrol in his shitty car and his shitty costume, and he's like stalking his girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend, and then he like, it's like the guy who wants to be a hero becomes a villain. And then I didn't do anything with that. And I was like, that shit sucks. Let's try something. Let's take the name and apply it to something that's actually cool, which felt lined up with some of that in that it's about a guy who is disturbed, but it's not because he's like a villain. It's because he's suffered trauma. You know what I mean? And these are very divisive times, not, socially, politically, and mentally, you know what I mean? That exposure of media to people has really, I think, distorted the way that we look at the world and even each other. You know what I mean? It's incredibly divisive, the era we live in right now. And it just kind of came together, piece by piece. I've known Daniel, the guy who plays Poncho, since I was a kid. He was a security guard and a camp counselor, when I was growing up. He pretty much introduced me to the world of comics, and I knew that he would be down to do this. And he has kids, and I'm sure he wants to be a superhero for his kids and stuff. And we talked about this character, and he was 100% down way before we even started shooting. We started writing it early on last year, and yeah, so that's kind of where it came from. It's a mixture of a shitty script, films that are fine, and then talking to Daniel, and he's like, let's do it.
I mean, I feel like some of the best films out there really start with a shitty script.
Yeah.
I mean, like really, I feel like if I could take like some of the earliest versions or renditions I have of like my scripts and look at them, it's like, damn, what the fuck was I thinking? But I mean, that's a part of the whole writing process, right? Is that you get it on paper first, and then you figure out like, okay, what's not working, what needs to be improved, what needs to be added, what needs to be taken out, and it's all about like molding that clay and making it look, making it feel like a much better, like a much better, project, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I mean, I that just to give some context, I think that script was written in 2017.
okay.
So back when I was really, really peering it, like I've been writing my whole life, but
Hmm.
really in terms of like script writing for film, that's when it was really early on. So
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy to even think about that, you know, that now we're here with a film that has a more meaning than some shitty, shitty Tubi film. That's
Hey,
15 minutes.
hey, you got to start somewhere, right? You really,
It's true.
yeah, yeah.
It's true.
You mentioned a little bit earlier that you had these series of short films that eventually led into Poncho. These films that take place in the city of Monterey. You
Yes.
have the films Podcast, the Shutter Angle, Golden Hour,
Yes.
um, Miss Chase. When you were, I mean, you said it was always your intention to have these all kind of lead into Poncho, right? Like this wasn't something that just kind of happened by accident. This was a planned timeline.
Well, a lot of it is very much like, I think in terms of the podcast, if we're looking at the podcast, right? Uh, that was very much just like something that was like, hey, Andrew, my buddy, who's the main guy in it. Um, you want to be? I wrote this kind of for him, that film. You know what I mean? I wrote it for him in that, like, I would ride around with him a lot when he's doing his Ubers and stuff, and we talk about horror films and stuff like that. And I love Andrew. He's a really close friend, and I'm like, dude, I want to get into this world of making films. Brian's down. Are you down for this? And he's like, fuck yeah, I'm down for it, bro. Let's go. So from there, it was just kind of like, we're making this for fun, for the homies, really, because all my friends are in the film, especially the early stuff. With Shutter Angle and Golden Hour, which were made in the same year, which was crazy, a really a, it's crazy, just a crazy process. Um, Golden Hour wasn't like, I started work on Golden Hour first, and Shutter Angle was like a kind of pet project to the side to relieve the stress and stuff. And Golden Hour wasn't intended to connect, but then more of the connections just started getting there, and I was like, well, this would be fun. It would be fun to do it like this, where it can stand on its own, but it can also lead into something. It can be part of someone else. These guys can be related. One of my heroes in film, even though I don't like a lot of his work, is Kevin Smith. You know what I mean? Like Kevin Smith, his View Universe is very much the template for me, even more so than like the Marvel films, the MCU. It's the fact that a movie like Chasing Amy, Mallrats, Jay and Silent Bob, like they can all Red State to a certain extent. These are four drastically different films that co-inhabit the same space. Like that's truly unique. You know what I mean? So in terms of like the timeline, Poncho became part of the timeline when I started work on Golden Hour. When I started really filming Golden Hour, and I was meeting with Veronica and Harrison and Exley and everything, and I started thinking about Poncho. I'm like, oh, this would be cool, and it could be, lightly connected. We don't want to. This ain't a Marvel film. It ain't gonna do those numbers and stuff. I'm not expecting everybody to watch everything that's connected, but I really want to see Poncho fuck up Harrison.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it became more of that.
Hmm. No, that's fucking cool, man. I mean, when I first saw you post the link for Poncho on your Instagram, I went and I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna watch Poncho. I'm gonna watch this, like small, feature film. A little did I know that it was connected to this entire universe, and I I saw like the whole playlist for it, and I was like, oh shit,
Holy shit.
there's so much more that I got to catch up on. How the fuck do you balance all this shit out? Because you're telling me that you made like two films in 1 year, you made this feature film, and you have a fucking job. Like how are you spinning all these plates at once, man?
Well, as you can probably tell, I just got off of work right now. I'm actually in right relatively close to the spot where you and I met for the first time. A lot of it happens at work. You know what I mean? I think the true balance of it is like, I have a job that's, and which I won't say, but I have a job that is really cool. And, you know, I'm lucky enough to be able to like edit during my downtime. Like I was editing a lot of Poncho here, you know. I did a lot of filming for Golden Hour here. I'm writing my next project here, you know, like and the fact that there's free coffee, you know, like you'll balance something out, man. In terms of the balance, I mean, you know, I would be lying if I said I had it all figured out and it's all perfect and everything. These films, they take a lot, man. They take a lot of energy. They take a lot of time, a lot of passion. You live a whole life. You live a whole life when making this stuff. You know, it's insane how crazy my life has changed from, you know, the podcast with Andrew and Brian to Poncho with Daniel. And I don't even, who knows where I'll be after my next stuff. What I'll say now is I have a better understanding of timeline to connect to what you were asking earlier. I know what the next couple projects are. And, you know, not to be like on some Kevin Feige type shit. I don't have like a board or anything, but I have an idea of where I'm headed in terms of film, hopefully, if all goes well, you know.
Hell yeah, man. No, that is so funny that you mentioned that like you have this job where you can, you know, edit while you're at work. I remember doing that myself when I made my first short film. I was working at a cafe and I had my computer set up like under the counter and I would edit between customers and shit, man. I mean, you just got to make the time. You just got to like figure it out.
Yep.
That's fucking great. That's fucking awesome, dude.
I've perfected, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, go ahead.
I've perfected the grunt of getting up when a customer comes in while I'm editing my film. Okay. I see someone come in, I'm like, what do you want?
Oh man, those customers, man. To quote, I mean, bring it back around to Kevin Smith. To quote Clerks, this job would be great if it wasn't for all the fucking customers. You know.
Oh my God, that's my mantra, bro. Do you know how often I think it's
I think about that shit all the fucking time. I don't even have a job in the service industry anymore, but I still think about it because it's so true. It's so fucking true.
It's true. I was described recently. I found out today that a customer came in and said, "Where's the tall, cranky guy?"
The tall, cranky guy.
I'm like, you know, I wish I wasn't human. I wish I was the perfect barista, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe they'll figure it out. They'll make some like barista AI or some shit, you know, that can make lattes and cappuccinos.
Don't say that, man.
I'm sure someone out there is working on that shit. Yeah, I mean, so you make these short films. You're building up your skills. You're building up, you know, your kind of your roster of these people who are helping you out. And then you get to Poncho and you make this film and it turns out like really fucking good. Like whenever people like send me links and shit to check out their short films, you never know like, oh, is this going to be, you know, is this going to be any good? Am I going to be like checking my phone in the middle of this? But like it really fucking got me. Like especially after that first scene and Poncho's coming in to, you know, save that girl. I mean, that shit was like that shit was fucking dope, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, you know, I do have to ask because, you know, this film, there is some like political shit going on in here, right? You use a lot of, you use like footage from, you know, the ICE protests and shit that was going on earlier this year in LA. When that shit started happening while you were in production on Poncho, did that inspire you to like keep pushing forward and to like keep this project going? You know, seeing that shit that was going on.
Well, what I'll say is, this, like I mentioned earlier, this film, the pre-production process of it started over a year ago. You know, the writing of it started over a year ago, and although there are differences from the first draft to what we have now, a lot of that, the elements of like, for example, like Scott Pyle, 100% still is from the first draft to here, you know, right? Figures like that, a presence like that, that type of commentary is, you know, what the film is really about. We're part of it from day one, over a year ago. Um, it's become unfortunate how it's become so relevant. A lot of the stuff that's in the film, it's unfortunate that a lot of it has come to light, you know, and you know, that's some, and we can talk lightly about some of this stuff, but like when this past fall, when a big event happened politically, where someone was unfortunately, you know, I was scared. I was very scared in making this film, and uh, when the raids really started happening, especially in Los Angeles, what's crazy is the opening scene of the film with the father and the pretty much the raid. We filmed that a couple weeks before this really started happening, you know. So we were kind of lucky in terms of the timing for that, you know, so that we wouldn't, you know, it's just better that it happened beforehand, to put it that way. So as you can imagine, it was really, really hard at points, especially while editing, of how much to show, how much to depict. Is it respectful to even include a lot of that stuff, you know? And I had those conversations with people, you know, even people I disagree with politically, you know, and believe it or not, a lot of the people who worked on this film, I don't agree with them on everything that's in terms of politics. You know what I mean? Um, but you know, thankfully that didn't hinder any sort of production or anything. Everybody wanted to see the film because everyone agreed that this had a meaning to it. You know what I mean? And I had those conversations with people who felt one way politically, the other way politically, people who were immigrants, you know, especially during that scene, while I was editing the scene where Poncho is on a bridge and he saves someone who's about to jump onto the freeway, and you see kind of a bunch of shots. And I asked him, "Hey, is this right? Is this wrong to do it like that? Is it right? What do I do here?" And because the film became kind of a protest film, really, and I'm happy about that, but I was scared, as you can imagine. And he said, "Listen, man, no one is going to be happy if you hold back. You know, if and one thing I don't like about films is when they circle around a subject rather than touch it, you know? Play with the nerve, you know what I mean? If it upsets people or if it rallies people or whatever, it's doing its job." And excuse me. I've always described this film as a movie that is, although it deals with politics, it's ultimately about humanity. That's what I said at the premiere that we had. I said, listen, because we watched Golden Hour, Miss Chase, and then Poncho. And I said, if Golden Hour is about apathy, this is about empathy, ultimately. And I think through that lens, it works, this film. So yeah, as you can imagine, I was really, you know, it was a lot. It was a lot to consider. But I had arguments at on the home front, you know what I mean? Uh, you know, it was not taken lightly, this project.
I mean, you know, this is something that my co-host and I talk about a lot. We've talked about it on the podcast and also just like in our personal, you know, conversations that we'll have, is that, you know, all art to an extent is political. And
Yes.
especially in times like this is when we need that kind of political art that really pushes back and says like, no, this is what we believe, or this is the, you know, this is the stance we're going to take. And the fact that you took that stance, and even though you started making this film before the ICE raids happened, before, you know, what happened, you know, back during the fall, the fact that you kept going with it and even pushed it a little harder, I think really speaks to, you know, your strengths as an artist and the fact that you're not afraid to shy away from that kind of shit. So, you know, kudos to you, man, for sticking with it and really
Thank
embracing
you.
that
Thank you.
messaging. Yeah.
Thank you.
Kind of taking it back now, making it a little lighter. You mentioned comic books. That,
Yes.
you know, comic books. I could not help but get a comic book feeling when I was watching Poncho, and we have the kid at the beginning who's reading the issue of Daredevil.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously, like the quick comparisons that someone can make watching Poncho is like, oh, he's like Batman. Oh, he's like Daredevil. He's like this, you know, street based superhero who's just beating the shit out of people. Like what were like was there any inspiration from comic books, and what were they, and how did you work that in?
Well, there are, if you can name a comic book character, it like they're all in there. I think, I think this is very much and I've kind of come to realize that the film isn't really about comic books. I mean, it's about a guy who grew up reading them, obviously, but like it's about like for example, like with Superman the movie, right? In 1978, I believe it was. It's about like what if this comic book character entered the real world, right? Like a figment of someone's imagination. What if they started taking over? I like to think that Poncho is very much the comic book fan. You know what I mean? That's why I love a character like, oh, yeah, he's getting them. He's going after them. Um, I like the reason I love a character like Phil Coulson from Marvel, who I really want to come back. I don't know why they haven't brought him back. I resonate so heavily with that character because he's one of us. He's the fan. And I think that speaks to so many more people than someone like, I love Superman, don't get me wrong, but like you can identify a bit better with someone like Coulson. You can relate more to someone like Coulson than someone who is the guy he looks up to, you know? So in terms of like the inspirations of like Poncho, literally, like absolutely, there are homages to Batman. I like to think he starts off more as a Batman figure and becomes more like a Superman kind of figure. That's what I like to look at the film as, especially like you see him like our homage to the animated series where he's standing up there and the lightning and
It looks so
like,
fucking cool. How the fuck did you get that shot of him on the bridge? Did he actually climb up on top of the fucking bridge, or did you have to do some like digital trickery and editing?
some AI work.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't AI. I was actually just talking to Daniel about this ahead of our podcast.
Hmm.
I was like, hey, how should I talk about this? 'Cause
I
it's
mean,
like,
were there any laws broken?
I mean, we didn't have, I mean, I don't, we were very lucky. And
Okay, we'll leave it at that then. If you don't
yeah,
want to
we
get
were
too much
very,
into it.
that is something that hopefully that story will be told. There is, what I'll say is a friend of mine, Luis, he's a really good photographer. He's Fatography on Instagram and with a P. And he is really, I think he's going to be doing a documentary about the film.
Oh hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, I showed him the trailer while we were doing a photo shoot. I showed him the trailer that's like the first one, and he was really excited about it. He was really inspired by it and everything. And he told me he wanted to do a documentary. So I think at some point we'll get into that.
Okay.
That what you're asking. But what I'll say is that those shots of Poncho on a bridge, whether if it's Daniel or if it isn't, those shots were not taken lightly.
Absolutely, yeah.
We prepared extensively.
Hmm.
We made sure that it was as safe as if we were to do this, if we were to have done this, it would have been prepared for, and there would have been someone there for safety. And that's what I'll say.
Copy that, sir.
Uh, it's definitely the one that's like, okay, those shots. If I've submitted the film in the festivals
Hmm.
recently, and if in my opinion, like I love the film and I know I'm very biased, but if those shots don't get it in the festivals by itself, then what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
I mean, you have some great fucking shots. You got some great fucking characters. You have a really compelling, story. Um, I mean, what is next for Poncho? I mean, where does he go from here? Are you gonna? Is there a sequel in the works? Is there maybe some like a limited series? Like when will Poncho return?
Um, Man, that's a good question. I So for those who have seen the film, you know that it is very open-ended at the end
Mm-hmm.
of what is next, of where Pancho might be, who he might be, um, and what exactly happened. People have asked me, they watch the ending of the film and they watch the part where in the hills and stuff, and they're like, "What happened there?" And I like the ambiguity of that. I like that there's not a certainty. I have an idea of what happened, but I think it's better to leave that part alone for at least a while, you know? But what I'll say is, in terms of the figure of Pancho, right? A sequel is something that Daniel and I have talked about. We've talked about it extensively. We have argued about it, and because he wasn't 100 before seeing the film. He was not really down with the way that the film ended, at least on paper, right? Um, he wanted it to be kind of different, and he and our friend Patrick, who is in the film as El Raton, Saga MC, the rapper, um, we would talk about it and we would debate about it, and it's like, well, why does it end like that? We should have it to where it's like more triumphant, like Pancho will return, And I again, like I just said, I like the ambiguity. So what I'll say is that I see a story where a Poncho 2 could happen. It won't be for a while because I would imagine it being a feature as well. And obviously that type of energy, that type of commitment is insane. And I am so thankful to the people who helped make this happen, from Daniel to Brian, my producer, to there are too many people to name, which is a great thing. So the time will come for more Poncho. I will say that in one form or another. Daniel and I have talked about, like, well, comics would be cool. I think it would be cool at some point, and this isn't a spoiler, but Daniel and I have toyed around with the idea of bringing him back specifically for like little shorts, like night one. You know what I mean? Like where he's getting his groove and everything. But right now, the next immediate project is called Kilmer, which will deal with vampires and stuff. Which is going to be cool, which is connected to the events of Poncho. The plan is it features two characters from Poncho, but actually multiple characters from Poncho, and yeah, at some point, hopefully, there will be an announcement for Poncho Dos
Poncho Part Two.
Part
Um,
Two.
so you mentioned it. Your next project is this Project Kilmer, which is about some vampires. Where'd the inspiration for that come from? Were you watching like Dusk Till Dawn late one night, or what's up, man?
I was actually watching Face Off.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, I was at the New Beverly with my mom. We went to go see Face Off, and I was watching it, and I knew I wanted to do a little post-credit scene for Poncho, um, involving something. I didn't know what it would be for a while. Um, but then I just started thinking about vampires would be pretty fun. I would like to do something with vampires at some point. And then I started thinking about the characters of Captain Juan Cabezas, played by Ivan Mayer, and Officer Kevin Chu, which is played by Kevin Liu. And it would be fun to do kind of like an end of watch meets Fright Night project. And that's kind of where Kilmer so I wrote a little scene on the ride back home from Face Off, which is the scene that you see the teaser for Kilmer which you can find on Instagram at BumblingCinema, which features those two after the events of Poncho talking about this freak character called Vincent Kilmer, and it is the guy we see in Poncho. So, you know, So far, I'm writing it. I actually have the tab open, my screenwriting software. It's on my computer right now. And like I said earlier, I'm writing it while here, wherever I can. Um, Not trying to overload my brain, but I, I'm a writing major and I haven't written in a minute, you know? So thankfully, one, I have someone who's down to produce it, who's going to produce it. I have the actors down to do it, and it'll be fun.
That I mean, that's really how it goes. You just got to keep going, keep making your shit, and that's fucking cool, dude. That is really fucking cool.
And
It's
I
very
will ask you this
Sure.
time. I will ask you for help because I know
Oh,
whenever we message each other, it's just like, "Hey, let me know if you need help." And I'm like, and I definitely was thinking about you, Anthony. I wasn't like, but I just got so. It's crazy, man. It's crazy to do this.
no, I totally get it,
You
man.
know,
I've been there. I've been right there with you. I mean, not with you, but I've been in the same spot you've
not
been
yet.
in. Not yet, no, soon. But no, man, I know how it goes, man. Making movies is fucking nuts. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's fucking sick, dude. I'm looking forward to your next project. I think that what you have going now, I mean, it's like you have this really interesting style and you have this like really interesting voice that you're like, you know, really finding. And yeah, I'm down to like see your next projects, to help out in any way. Of course, before we started recording, I was telling you about a project of mine that I'm
Hmm.
hoping maybe you can help out with as well in the
Absolutely.
future. So that's also what it's about. It's about the networking and meeting like-minded people who want to be involved in that same way. That's fucking cool, man.
Yeah. The thing is like I like to think of the at its best, this process of making the film is the time you spend with each other. You know what I mean? Like it's the memories, the fun, that is even the trials, you know what I mean? And in terms of like networking and stuff, just look for the genuine part of people, you know what I mean? Because one thing that I was a little disheartened by in terms of school and stuff, of like going to film school and stuff, is just like there's very much like a hustle attitude. You know what I mean? Like there's definitely, you need to hustle, you need to make networking with people, even people you don't like, which I understand to a certain extent, but a lot of that can come at the expense of people's mental fortitude. And like no one wants to feel like they're being disingenuous all the time, especially in this film space, which it should be just, let's, we're young, let's make movies and shit, let's have a good time, it's supposed to be fun. Don't relieve some of the pressure, so just look for that genuine nature. And if you don't find it in someone, that, it's okay. Just move on and you'll find it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to stress yourself out because there's already enough stress to go around. So you don't want
Yeah,
to you don't want to add to it, right?
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap this up, is there anything
Mhm.
else that you want to that you want to let our listeners know, and any other like projects that you're working on, or maybe some parting words for people who may want to do the same thing that you're doing?
Well, if you want to keep up with anything
Hmm.
revolving this stuff, just follow Bumbling Cinema on Instagram and YouTube. I haven't, I used to do a lot more of the content stuff, early on, but films get in the way, and you have to prioritize. Like you guys said something really good on one of your previous podcasts. I think it was the Star Trek Insurrection one, where you mentioned that it gets really hard to podcast something as simple as podcast. It gets really hard to do it, and I used to podcast regularly, and I miss it. So that's another reason why I'm so happy to have joined you, because I've missed doing it and I want to do it more, and I want to be able to be consistent and stuff. But life really just gets in the way, dude. It's insane how life gets in the way of the things you want to do. So in terms of the parting words, really understand what it is you want to do. Understand it, man, because you don't have the time. None of us are immortal. We're not vampires. We have a limited amount of time here to do the things that we want to do, the things that make us happy. And whether it be writing a film, making a film, going to the movies, whatever it is, it's if it's something you want to do, then do it. And don't be afraid when that want changes as well. You know, be be flexible. You know, be flexible, passionate, and do your best to treat people with respect as you go on.
Absolutely. Be respectful, be passionate, and don't kill yourself over this, right? Like,
No.
take it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was great talking to you, man. It was great talking to you about Poncho and about
Thank you.
this whole universe that you've built just through your short films on YouTube. And I hope that we can talk more about movies in the future.
Yeah, I would love to I would love to do that as well. I'm looking forward to the Wild Hogs episode of your podcast. You know,
I will have to talk to Caleb about that and see where we can fit that in. So
I'm a big fan of the podcast. I've messaged you about this that I really like what you guys do.
thank
And
thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
absolutely. I was just
Yeah.
listening to the Galaxy Quest one. I love it.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. And you can watch our episodes now too, as I'm sure some people are watching this right now. We're doing video podcasts now. It's very exciting. So, but yeah, thank you again, Julius. I can't wait to have you on again.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait to see you and hang out, you know?
Hell yeah, we got to do that sometime after the holidays though. These next couple weeks are
Absolutely.
gonna be fucking crazy, but
Tell me about it.